Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Again, it is clear that this is not Bob McCoskrie with Daybreak. It's Simon O'Connor here, one of the hosts, of course, here at Family First, running another episode of Solid Ground this morning. In fact, this is the 41st episode of Solid Ground. It's not a particular date or a series to celebrate, if you will, but it's still, I think, exciting because when Bob and I talked about this many months ago, and those tentative first steps, it's great to be here at the 41st show. Somewhat helped along by the fact that poor old Bob is still not 100%. He's improving. Those of you who have been following the news this week, and certainly my discussions here as I'm covering for Bob, nasty little eye infection, but he's doing okay, which is the main thing. And I'm just displaying here, of course, this is our new weekly program, of course, when Bob himself is back. So Family First, our reach is growing quite substantially. And so we decided to actually do basically a morning show every day. Every weekday. We'll take Saturday and definitely Sundays off. But as you can see, the lineup is going to be Bob doing his Daybreak show, 7:30 a.m. In fact, all the shows will be at 7:30 a.m. So Bob's doing Monday, Wednesday and Fridays, and I'm filling in the gaps. But as you know, if you've been tuning in every day, I've been doing it all this week, which has been quite exciting. Good morning to you all. Again, as you know, and the regulars will know this, it's all the new ones who are joining. If you want to comment live on the show like Mandy just has from the wonderful Wairarapa, if you're on the Family First... Jacob, but Bob wants to start the Bring Back Bob hashtag campaign, so we do need that. We want to need Bob back. But if you want to put through comments like you see that Mandy and Jacob have done, if you're on the Family First Facebook page or the Family First YouTube channel, those messages will come to me directly. If you're on the like of my Facebook page or on LinkedIn, for example, I'll be able to see the comments later in writing, but they're not going to come live to me in the studio like Vanessa's just has from the Waikato. To all of you tuning in, you've segued beautifully, Rosie, because I'm here in Auckland, as people know, but it's clearly a fake background because it's definitely not that light here, I can tell you, and it is bucketing down with rain. So I suspect wherever you are in the country at the moment tuning in, it's a very wet morning. I hope actually you're all safe. I know some parts of the country have been hit particularly hard. So if you're someone who's finding yourselves flooded, or there's slips, or just actually understandably worried about driving in this heavy weather, our thoughts are with you this morning. But Rosie's quite correct too, and I agree with this as a gardener. We do need the rain. I think most of us though, and I probably speak for you, Rosie, most of us like to have it in smaller amounts but regularly. Now, speaking of guests, one of our excellent followers sent me, and I've got to try and find it now. Where did I put it? I will find it in a tick. But sent me a picture from the Herald, which I thought was right on the money, if I can find it, because of course right at the moment, for reasons I cannot explain, I can't. Give me a second. There it is. I'm just going to put this up here. Chris sent this through to me either late night or this morning, but I certainly picked it up this morning, drawing my attention to this little story. And again, the particulars are somewhat interesting, but it's more, again, just illustrating to you guys the problematical, the double standards we're seeing in media. So long and short, this chap, I assume this is the chap who owns a B&B in Napier, is declining bookings. He's declining bookings for people who are American. In fact, he interrogates them of whether or not they are Democrats or they are Republicans. And if they are Republicans, then he basically turns them down, which, I think is pretty rude, to put it simply. Now, the first point of it, of course, you're not meant to discriminate in this country. And you know what? Actually going around interrogating people, as we saw weeks back, actually, asking if they were Jewish or Israeli, not by this guy, by the way, but by others, is just inappropriate. And by just quickly, good morning, Lisa. Lovely to have you on board. But long and short, isn't it fascinating? And this was Chris's point to me. Here is mainstream media, in this case, the Herald, running this piece. Almost, you could suggest, celebrating the man's decision. To be, again, discriminating against Americans. But remember, this is the same newspaper that would scream at a Christian couple, I think it was up north, who made a decision not to actually open their homes up to certain guests. We can always think, of course, granted it comes from America, the example of a baker who wouldn't make a wedding cake. And just notice how the media handles things in very different ways. As I say, the Herald, in effect, I would argue, are celebrating this fellow. And what he's doing, because he's anti-Trump and anti-Republican. But boy, I bet you if he had decided to close his B&B to, I don't know, any other grouping, in fact, the list is long, he'd be in trouble. He'd be in big trouble. And it reminds me too, of course, and I wrote about this on my Substack last year, the double standards that you also see around faith issues in general. Think of Israel, Folau, of course, and others who speak up, particularly on Christian issues. Doesn't have to be, but Christian issues or life issues, they are slammed. They have their careers destroyed. But when you have rugby players, netball players who are pushing woke issues, again, they are celebrated. So anyway, a simple point. Once again, I talk too long. We've got Celia here from Omokoroa. Lovely to have you along. Vanessa, that is a very kind comment. And yes, I'm pleased that the rain is there, the Waikato and the Taranaki. It's, it is needed. Trinity, lovely to have you along. And Jackie, look, it's lovely to see new and familiar faces. So Jackie there from Reitihi, lovely to have you along. So look, I'm not actually going to talk about the Greens today. There's a relief, because actually my pick, here we go. I'm not going to talk about them, but he's going to quickly talk about them. I don't know if you know, so obviously Parliament's sat this week, and it's sitting next week. In other words, the MPs are meant to be back in Wellington. But next week is the last week before they go on a 3-week break. I'm picking that the Greens will continue the we are victims and making up these threats. And I say making up because we've seen no evidence to date, or they're over-egging them, maybe more generous. I'm sure there has been some actually disgusting comments that shouldn't have been directed to them. But long and short, they'll make an excuse for Benjamin Doyle to be away from Parliament next week as well, so that then he can hide for the 3-week break. In other words, they're going to hope that over the course of 5 weeks in total, that he can hide away from what are actually very serious questions, which, as I keep saying, mainstream media by and large are not actually asking. Although I was quite impressed the other day. Someone sent me, because I don't watch the TV1 or TV3 news, I think it's basically rubbish. But someone sent me a clip. Kudos where it's due. Mikey Sherman on TV1, and I don't have the clip here. If this was Bob, he'd have the clip. But she actually asked some good questions. And actually, in terms of the mainstream media, it was better than most. But there's still a long way to go. But that's my pick. My pick is they're going to hide away Benjamin Doyle. They're going to hide him away from the scrutiny over his terrible and deeply inappropriate post to do with children, and hope we all forget. But bad news for him and bad news for the Greens. A number of us, certainly here at Family First, will not forget, and we'll be waiting to ask those questions when he reappears, because of course he may have forgotten he's a member of Parliament and he's accountable to all of us. Yep, as Mandy said, a lot of these are just common sense issues that just get slammed. Philippa, lovely to have you along. Good morning. And Jackie's telling me this is the first time through Facebook rather than YouTube. I hope both experiences are good. I often afterwards go across many of the platforms. I don't get to reply to everything, but I try to read all the comments. But I must admit now, guys, there's quite a few between Bob's pages, my pages, Family First, LinkedIn, you know. I think we're on Instagram. It's all over the place. And Andrew Bonnie Payne, there we go. So, I'm reading that wrong, but good afternoon. Look, there we go. I often say we have people from around the world. So they're in the United States. That's a great segue, actually, because the big news down here, guys, is possibly in America after what did Trump call it? Liberation Day. This fella here, who you'll all recognise, has passed tariffs pretty much across the globe. And I thought I quickly would address this because there's already a bit of mischief making in media. And look, I've got my own political views on this. So personally, I don't like tariffs. I'm a bit of a free trader. New Zealand actually relies on it. We don't put tariffs down on any products. We're a small economy when it comes to the world. And so we've always been, in New Zealanders, that is, big proponents of free trade. But Trump, amongst many things, this was one of his platforms, was to introduce tariffs. He's arguing, and to be honest with you guys, I don't know enough, but he's arguing that the US doesn't get a fair deal around the world. And he put this up to sort of illustrate the point. I know it's very small, I'll zoom in further. But these are basically lists of, well, not all the countries, there's only some of the pages. So this is the country, and then in the second blue column is what he claims, or the Trump administration claims, is the tariffs that countries apply to the United States, and some will. So again, if you're importing, say, into Japan, an American car, they slap very big tariffs on that. If you're, I think, like in Australia, either they don't allow meat from the US in, or they tariff it, for example. And then on the orange column, and I'm going to zoom into this one because it shows New Zealand, is the tariff that we've been hit with. In other words, in this case, and what's going to happen is every good from New Zealand will have a 10% tariff. So wine, beef, lamb. You get that right. Everything going into the United States is going to be hit with a 10% tariff. That was the smallest amount, so we can be somewhat happy, because as you can see above and below, some others are getting hit much, much harder. I think China's been hit with a 34% tariff on all goods. In other words, again, every Chinese good going into the United States is going to be hit with a 34% tariff. New Zealand, only 10%. So look, I don't like it. I don't think it's particularly positive. But you know what? He's allowed to do it. Again, that's not supporting it. But you know what? He's there to do what he wants to do as the president and elected to do. And the other thing is, and I just see it a little bit in the reporting here of, how dare he think about us, think about these other countries. Well, he doesn't need to. His first priority, and it's sort of in a hint in his baseball cap, it's make America great again. That's his priority. And he feels, again, rightly or wrongly, I suspect more on the wrong side, that the US is getting a bad deal everywhere. It certainly gets a bad deal in some places, but he's taken this very big stick, and it has upset the trading order, because what's going to happen now is a lot of other countries will fire back. New Zealand's not going to. We don't have any strength in this, but China, Canada, and others will hit back, and they'll be putting tariffs on American goods coming into their country. In other words, everything's just going to get more expensive. So the bad news, guys, the bad news is all of us are going to get hit. So yeah, there it is. Let's see what happens. As I say, no one's been able to give a definitive answer of what is going to happen. Obviously, we've seen stock markets fall and so on. But two things, and I'll jump back. Oh, I've got the wrong one up. This one. So New Zealand, some people have been asking me, well, if we don't charge tariffs, where does the 20% come from? And a lot of people are scratching their heads. And look, if you're on here and feel very free to comment. We obviously have our 15% GST, and we do know that the Trump administration views these as sort of internal tariffs. It doesn't make a lot of sense because, of course, as we all know, GST applies to everything, not just American goods. So I've been talking so much, my voice is going. I haven't just forgotten to turn the sound back on. So look, long and short, I think it's made up. That's where I'm trying to get to. We don't have tariffs on goods from America. We don't have tariffs on any countries, really. GST doesn't explain what it is. And where did I see it? Grant put this comment up, that it's a 10% base for all. That's right. So it's 10% everybody, and then it goes higher from there. And part of the formula, which I'm actually about to show you, the mathematicians here might like it. What we're going to see is he just needed to justify the 10%. In other words, he's always going to claim that people are close to 20%. He's just made up the figure for New Zealand, or his administration has. So I don't think we need to scratch our heads too hard. Kat's asking, will prices go up 10%? I think they'll go up. I don't think it'll be by 10% necessarily. So again, this is really, in the first instance, is up to the Americans. So, as I say, a bottle of New Zealand wine now will attract a 10% tariff. It'll be up to the Americans over there, the people who are supplying it, taking it rather, importing, to go, well, do we pass that price on totally to the consumer? They probably will pass part of it on. But at the same time, Dick, here in New Zealand, because things are going to be more expensive, you could imagine Americans not buying as much, which means New Zealanders aren't selling as much, and that's going to have a flow-on effect here that we need to find other markets, and that we're going to have to find, people who are prepared to pay a little bit more. So there's a bit of a negative flow-on effect. Sean's got some good insights here. We just need to buy Kiwi-made and not just keep sending it all overseas. Bear in mind, Mike's noticed that there's a surplus that we've exported more than importing here. So absolutely. Although I think New Zealand runs a trade deficit, I think, overall. But yeah, you're right. America, that's part of it too. So what Mike's indicating, part of Trump's thing is, hey guys, you send a lot of stuff to us, but you don't buy a lot of our stuff. That's some of his basic premise. And you know what? There's good grounds for that. And Mike's comment just nails it. But just bear in mind, and I'll move on, bear in mind that New Zealand's second largest trading partner is the United States. So basically, it's going to hurt. I don't think in the short term it's going to affect our prices here, because again, it's a tariff of goods going into America, but there will be flow-on effects. One small positive, which you won't be able to see, so I very conveniently done this for you. I hope let's do this. There we go. One small positive, and it is very small in the grand scheme of things, is for the first time the Americans have actually referred to Taiwan as Taiwan. And you know my interest in foreign affairs, you know my concerns around communist China bullying Taiwan. You'll know I've actually travelled to Taiwan to meet their president. But this is the first time that the Americans have actually treated it like a country and named it. So often it's the People's Republic of China, or they just don't mention it. So to have it specifically there is quite something. And you can see, I think he's claiming that there's a 64% tariff, or tariffs, or costs which the Taiwanese impose on American goods. So he's slamming them with 32% tariffs. I mean, just let that sink in for a moment. Every Taiwanese good going into America is going to be a third more expensive. I mean, phew. And how do they work this out? Well, supposedly this is a calculate. I'm not kidding you. Found this last night. I am not mathematical. I've got no idea. But this is the formula. Now, obviously, there's an explanation. I haven't included it because I don't understand it, and it would take up too much of the screen. But just let that sink in as I nail a cup of coffee from my solid ground mug. So yeah, crazy times, and this is coming through. The theory is that Trump split the difference between the trade surplus with the US with the importing. In other words, where the result ends up for New Zealand. So yeah, there will be elements of that. Again, part of it for me, I think, is a lot of it, particularly to do with New Zealand, is cosmetic. We were going to be hit with 10%, and I actually tend to agree a little bit with Winston Peters that actually this is a, if you will, sort of a win for New Zealand diplomacy, because it could have been worse, and we couldn't avoid it in total. Thinking of avoiding, these are just some quick observations on some other things happening around the world, politically here in New Zealand. Something I don't like, actually. The government's looking to shake up the supermarket industry, and let's be really clear, people. I don't like the duopoly that we have at the moment. You all know how expensive things are if you are a supplier, and they've got friends who supply to the supermarkets. They've got you completely over a barrel. So let me be clear, I don't like that at all. But I'm a bit of a free market person, so this is some political commentary. I don't like governments interfering. And if it was possible for a third operator to come here and start, they would. But, last time I checked, New Zealand's quite a small country, so we'd love to have a Marks and Spencer or a Aldi or whatever other brands there are come here, but they clearly haven't because there isn't a market. There we go. So, yeah, I just don't like governments tinkering in the space. And look, people may well disagree with me on that, and that's fair enough, because if you are like me, you hate paying these big prices for everything. And as I say, the duopoly here do have you over a barrel, but I just am always nervous when governments get too involved. So that's just a reflection there. And you've also got the government, well, in the police in this case, and something to be aware of. It's sort of under the radar, but police, I think, are the ones driving this call to regulate protest rights in New Zealand. So police have been rightly hauled over the coals for how they have treated various protests, obviously from COVID times through to Posey Parker when they just stood back and let women be assaulted, right through to arresting people on the street, like my friend Lucy Rogers, who stood with a very simple sign at a pro-Hamas rally, and she was the one arrested because the police were scared that the pro-Hamas protesters here were going to attack her. So instead of arresting the potential attackers, they decided to arrest her. So long and short, we already have laws which regulate protests, but they want more, and we should be worried about this. They want everyone to have to notify the protests. They want all the details. They want more arrest powers. There's always, like any suggestion of regulation, some positives. They do want to stop people turning out to people's homes and protesting outside there. Some within the civil liberties space are saying, no, we should be allowed to do this. I'm not so comfortable with that. I think there's many places to protest, but literally turn out to people's homes. This is what the pro-Hamas groups and the other woke left-wing causes would love to do. They want to dox and harass you. And so, I think we have to draw a line. So I'm not an absolutist when it comes to protest, but I am nervous about this. I don't like the idea that there could be more legislation, in effect handing more power over to the government to decide who can and cannot protest. And be aware that, the police and others, I think, actually another very strange idea, which has gone quiet, fortunately, but the National Party was suggesting that if you are running a protest or a rally, you have to pay for security. Again, is ridiculous. We already pay for security or police through our taxes, but it develops in what they call the thugs veto. So, you're all aware, but I'm very involved with the March for Life, great supporter of it. We have a lot of the death cultists who turn up to yell and scream, and we have to have security for that reason. It just gives them an incentive to be more violent and more crazy, so that, ultimately you cost yourself out of the ability to hold a rally. So look, it's crazy stuff. So I just sort of draw your attention to that. Speaking of crazy stuff, I'm going to play a little bit of this video. Speaking of the death cultists, this is a former Minister of Health grilling the government yesterday.
Did he say, with respect to abortion, we're not changing the legislation because his intention was to reduce services slowly through underfunding and inadequate staffing?
No.
It's only a short snipper. That's Aisha Verrall, Labour MP and former minister. Actually, just quite disgraceful. She was challenging, in this case, Minister Brown for his pro-life views, and then accusing him of trying to strip out abortion services in New Zealand in a very dirty, underhanded way. So she had got a tidbit of information that I think there must be a shortage of abortion providers in the Whakatane region. And whether the one or two people, I don't even know if there's any people, but those wanting abortions are not effectively giving taxi chits to allow them to go and terminate their baby. And that's the issue that Aisha Verrall from the Labour Party thinks is the most important. And again, the way that she asked the question is dirty and underhanded, because it's trying to make out that the Minister of Health is doing something wrong, not even in the way he's doing it, because he's not doing anything, by the way, but it's more that he's a pro-lifer and therefore is worthy of to be mocked and abused. And this just shows you just the decay, I would suggest. And it goes across political parties, because there's a lot of pro-abortionists, and a number of them. But within the Labour Party, the party that actually introduced abortion up to birth and supports birthed babies being killed as well, it's just very sick. And I just thought I'd quickly draw it to your attention. Let's not forget the rot and the sickness in people like Asha Verrill. And when you see the problems in the health system at the moment, let's not forget she was the minister along with Chris Hipkins, who have put us in this absolute rot. So I just think it's, it was Rosie said here, first assessments, she did, nothing. And I mean, I could go on for quite a while about just how bad the health system is, courtesy of Labour, but I just wanted to draw that to your attention, because again, it's just a reminder of how anti-life they are. And then when you think about all the political and health issues we have at the moment, it's abortion they're obsessed with. And that's probably the last. And Lisa's right. They are all underfunded. And that's probably part of my point too, Lisa, of all the things. You could talk about cancer drugs. We could talk about getting access to your GP, timing for surgery. But no, Asha Verrill wants to kill babies. Let's be really blunt about it. That's her priority. While talking about don't import the culture wars from the United States. But of course, they're obsessed with it. Absolutely obsessed with it. So it's just sad. And again, I've probably talked too long. Sean's asking, so we know that two things. So at the moment, New Zealand's law allows abortion right up to birth. And we also know there's instances where there's what we call botched abortions, and the baby is birthed and alive. Well, it's already alive, but it's alive outside the mother, and it's just left to die. Okay, so just that, and not at you, Sean, but just to explain it. And secondly, I put forward an amendment during the abortion debate that medical care must be given to babies born alive through a botched abortion. And it happens. Again, we had an abortion survivor, and actually we had two at the Family Forum last year speaking. So this happens, not often, let's not over-egg this, but it does happen. But as I put forward an amendment in the Parliament to say, okay, if it's all about the baby in or outside the womb, if it's born alive, then medical care must be given. And it was voted down by most MPs, not just Labour MPs, but most MPs voted it down. So I find that quite sick myself. Sorry, not getting emotional. I'm just losing my voice after all this week. So I hope that explains it. So it doesn't happen often, but it does happen. And so it's pretty bad, when you actually ponder it. Particularly, a lot of the arguments around the abortion space. Hey, look, it's inside the mum. It's dependent on the mother. It's not actually a viable. Well, this is the problem. Once they are, well, not the problem. It's the problem for the pro-death cult. Once it is born, it's alive. But then they're happy to terminate it too. Happy to clarify. Heavy topic for a Friday morning. Something I think slightly better. Shakespeare. Who cannot? Well, I like Shakespeare. It probably doesn't surprise you. Good news. Actually, there are good changes coming to the New Zealand curriculum, and here's just a few of them. I mean, you don't have to read them all, but two points. Shakespeare's fully back in the curriculum, as are actually an array of other, I think, really excellent books, both from New Zealand authors and overseas. So obviously the poetry of World War I poets. So if you're people like me, you'll know of Secret Sassoon, for example, and many others. So Macbeth, you can see there at the bottom. But it's interesting that the left wing are already yelling and screaming about how wrong this is. As I say, you've got Ozymandias there by Shelley, famously quoted by, oh my God, his name slips my mind now, Oppenheimer. I am death, destroyer of worlds. And that's from the poem Ozymandias by Shelley. But there's some really good things here. But the woke are screaming and yelling that this is not right. Why should we learn Shakespeare in New Zealand? Well, last time I checked, we speak English. And the second thing, of course, is Shakespeare. His English is exceptional. The ideas, the concepts, the phraseologies that we use today. And also, and this is probably a really key point. I just noted in year 12 they're going to have the kids read The Handmaid's Tale. Well, that's a load of rubbish, or concepts in it, but people are allowed to have different ideas. But you can see Edgar Allan Poe, they're going to have people read 1984, which is brilliant. Long and short, there's a good array of topics, which is really good and what young ones need to involve with. But the woke are screaming and yelling that this guy here shouldn't be involved, and basically it should all just be basically non-English texts, anything but English people. And it's just quite crazy, and it's on the premise. It's on the premise that every country, culture has the equivalent literary history, and it's just not true. I'm afraid to say, it's just not true. And when we're studying English, it's no surprise that a lot of it's going to be coming out of England. And again, you can't surpass Shakespeare. But again, they're jumping up and down. But when you look through the lists, and we don't have to agree with each and every one of them, but actually it's quite a good array, I've said, of authors from literally England, from New Zealand, and around the world. But there is just this very, I would argue, guys, strange concept about these days, which is that you can only source from your own country, as if there isn't sort of a patrimony or a heritage in the wider world that we can tap into. So I, for one, am grateful for Shakespeare. I can see Andrew and Bonnie as well. And I did post, just so you know, my favourite Shakespearean quote is from King Lear, and it's quite eccentric. It's, "Prithee, nuncle, be contented, 'tis a naughty night to swim." And you go, what? The reason for that is many years ago, I think I was in Form 5, whatever that is now, is that year 11? I came across, I think I was reading or studying Lear, and I just thought it was such an absurd line, "Prithee, nuncle, be contented, 'tis a naughty night to be swimming," that I decided I was going to put that in to as many essays of any topic that I could, whether it was geography, whether it was English, social studies. It's just been my little, I don't know, trick. I think I may even have it in my postgraduate theses that I've done over time. So anyway, too much information. It's past 8 o'clock. I'm going to leave you, I'm going to run this last little clip for you. It's new, so then you know all the amazing stuff we're doing at Family First, and then I will sign out and say goodbye.
If you're looking for news that you can trust, commentary on key family and social issues, and conservative conversations, go no further. Family First has them all. Start each weekday informed. 7:30 a.m. live, Monday, Wednesday and Friday, Daybreak with Bob McCoskrie, as he gives an overview of key stories that you need to be aware of. 7:30 a.m. live, Tuesday and Thursday, a more in-depth discussion, Solid Ground with Simon O'Connor. On Monday nights, live at 8 p.m, watch Straight Talk with our panel. Thursdays, live at 5 p.m, political playback, as we discuss the week in Parliament and New Zealand politics in general from a conservative viewpoint. You can watch all of these features live and also on demand on our website, Facebook, X, Instagram, LinkedIn, and on our YouTube channel. Plus, there's regular episodes of social commentary with Mick Blog and weekly interviews in Family Matters. There's also additional commentary on our website, and both Simon and Bob are writing on Substack. Finally, something worth watching that you can trust. Go to familyfirst.nz for more details.
So no shortage, guys, and I thought I'd put this up. Shameless. Look, Bob, as I say, recovering. He should be back next week, so he'll be doing Daybreak on Monday morning. Obviously, we've got Straight Talk Monday night. If you want to help Bob out, not just directly, but Family First, it's the 20th year. I mean, can you imagine that? 20th year. So we're doing a little bit of a donation push. If you'd love to support what Bob does, what I do, what the rest of the team does at Family First, jump onto our website, familyfirst.org.nz. But in the meantime, guys, have a great day. I've lost track of time. I'm meant to be taking my foster child to school, so I probably should do that after all my talk of Shakespeare. But have a wonderful day. Keep dry. Keep safe. I look forward to seeing you all next week, probably Tuesday morning, or I might be on Straight Talk, but I will see you next week. And in the meantime, just have a wonderful, wonderful Friday. Stay dry. Stay safe.